He gave $1 to a little girl selling candy on the street. Then she looked up and said, "You look just like my dad." What happened next unraveled a past he thought was gone forever and led to a future he never saw coming. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel as a sign of support. Your engagement helps keep powerful stories like this alive. The air in Manhattan buzzed with its usual rhythm: honking taxis, distant chatter, and the echo of hurried footsteps against concrete. It was a brisk October morning, and Grant Whitaker, a successful real estate investor, known for his low profile despite his wealth, walked out of his high-rise apartment building in Soho. Wearing a navy pea coat and leather gloves, he blended in well with the city's fashionable elite, though he'd never been interested in glitz or glamour. At 45, Grant had seen the best and worst of life. Orphaned young, he had clawed his way up from a childhood in foster homes to the penthouse suites of New York. He rarely allowed emotion to interfere with business, but he did have one soft spot: children working hard for a cause. Maybe it was because he never had a normal childhood himself, or maybe it reminded him that not everyone is handed a fair start. That morning, he didn't have any meetings or real estate showings. He simply needed some air. A long walk through the neighborhood always helped him think, especially with a big contract in the works. He was eyeing a historic block in Brooklyn Heights for a redevelopment project. It would change the face of the neighborhood, and while the numbers looked right, his gut hadn't given a firm yes. As he neared the corner of Houston and Lafayette, he noticed a young girl, couldn't be older than 8, standing beside a crate of assorted candy bars. Her jacket was a size too big, and her gloves were mismatched. She held a cardboard sign, raising money to help mom. Candy $1. Grant slowed down. Kids selling candy wasn't unusual in the city, but there was something sincere about the way she stood, proud but tired. Her eyes were alert but shadowed, as though she'd had to grow up too fast. Without thinking much of it, Grant reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a dollar bill. "Here you go, kid," he said, placing it gently into her gloved hand. "Keep the candy." The girl looked up, and for a moment, time stood still. Her gaze locked with his, and she tilted her head slightly. "You look just like my dad," she said in a quiet, matter-of-fact voice. Grant froze. His heart skipped. He hadn't heard someone mention dad to him in years. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words got stuck in his throat. He turned to look at her again, this time really seeing her. Dark curls, amber eyes, a curious tilt in the chin, features he hadn't seen in decades. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ellie," she said. "My mom says I look just like him, too. He died before I was born." A strange mix of emotions welled up in Grant's chest: curiosity, guilt, and something deeper, something that felt almost like fate. Grant crouched down to Ellie's level, his eyes scanning her face again, looking for what exactly? Proof? A sign? She was just a little girl, but something about her struck a nerve so deep it nearly knocked the wind out of him. "You said your dad passed away?" he asked gently. Ellie nodded and hugged her arms tighter. "Yeah. Mom says he was real smart and kind. He used to work construction. They weren't married, but he wanted to be." Grant's stomach tightened. Construction? That alone wasn't a clue. Lots of people worked in construction. But then Ellie said something that made his blood run cold. "His name was David, but Mom called him DJ. She says I have his smile." Grant stumbled back slightly. DJ was his older half-brother, David James Whitaker. He hadn't seen him since they were both teenagers in a foster home in Queens. They had stuck together through everything, the only family either of them really had. But DJ had vanished after turning 18, leaving behind a note. "Gotta make my own way, little bro. Don't look for me." That was over 25 years ago. Grant stood, heart thudding. "Your dad's name was DJ? DJ Whitaker?" Ellie looked up, wide-eyed. "I think so. I don't know the last name, but Mom's is Bennett. She said he left before I was born, went to try and get his life together." A gust of wind blew down the street, but Grant barely felt it. Pieces of the past were flying back at him, too fast to process. "Where's your mom now?" he asked. "She works at the diner a couple blocks away. Double shifts. I help out with stuff like this when I can. Ellie smiled, lifting the crate slightly with pride. Sometimes people give extra. You come out here alone? He asked. She nodded. I'm street smart, don't worry. Grant gave a dry laugh. You sound like someone I used to know. His mind flashed back to DJ. The same stubborn pride, the same amber eyes. Could it really be? Could Ellie be his niece? 1,000 questions swirled in his mind, but he knew this much. This wasn't coincidence. Grant pulled out his wallet and handed Ellie a 20. Tell your mom you're taking a break. Can you show me where she works? Ellie hesitated. Why do you want to meet her? I think I might have known your dad. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. Okay, it's the Silver Spoon Diner on 5th, just down that way. They started walking side by side. As they passed the crosswalk, Grant looked down at Ellie, his heart pounding with a strange mix of fear and hope. For years, he thought he'd lost every piece of his family. But now, maybe, he had a second chance. The Silver Spoon Diner sat snugly on the corner of 5th and Main, its faded red awning fluttering in the breeze. It had all the marks of a classic neighborhood joint: chrome trim, booth seating visible through the windows, and a chalkboard outside announcing today's special, meatloaf and mash. Grant hadn't stepped foot in a place like this in years. Too many power lunches and catered meals had distanced him from anything that felt normal. But as he pushed open the diner door behind Ellie, a rush of warm air and the scent of fresh coffee hit him like a wave of nostalgia. He paused just inside, scanning the room. Waitresses bustled between tables, regulars chatted over breakfast, and behind the counter stood a woman who made him stop in his tracks. She was in her late 30s, wearing a maroon apron, her dark hair tied back in a bun. Despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes, there was something striking about her. Dignity, strength, and a tired beauty that life hadn't completely worn down. She was pouring coffee when Ellie tugged on her sleeve. "Mom, this man wants to talk to you," Ellie said. "He says he knew Dad." The woman turned slowly. Her eyes met Grant's and she froze for just a second before her expression narrowed. "Excuse me?" she asked, her tone cautious. "I'm sorry," Grant began. "This might sound strange, but I was just passing by when I met Ellie. She said her father's name was DJ, David James, and he used to work construction. Did he ever mention having a brother?" Her eyes widened slightly, then softened, as if memories she had boxed away came flooding back. DJ talked about a little brother once, said he regretted leaving him behind. Her voice trembled. "That's me," Grant said quietly. "I'm Grant Whitaker." A moment of stunned silence hung between them. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You really are him. DJ told me about you, how he used to protect you in foster care. He said he made a lot of mistakes but wanted to come find you one day." Grant swallowed hard. "He never got the chance?" She shook her head. "He passed away in a construction accident in Ohio, 12 years ago. We had just found out I was pregnant." Grant's hands tightened on the edge of the counter. "I never knew. I looked for him years ago, but nothing came up. I changed my last name back to Bennett after he died. I didn't want Ellie growing up with questions I couldn't answer." They both looked toward Ellie, who sat in a booth, swinging her legs and nibbling on a candy bar, blissfully unaware of the emotional storm unfolding. Grant turned back. "I want to help, not just with money, though that's the easy part. I want to be part of her life, if you'll let me." Her expression was unreadable. "She doesn't know what it's like to have family, not really." "Then maybe it's time she does," Grant replied softly. The hours after their conversation passed in a blur. Jenna, Ellie's mom, had taken a short break from her shift to sit with Grant in the far booth while Ellie colored on a napkin. The truth of it all still hadn't fully sunk in, but Jenna had seen enough sincerity in Grant's eyes to know he wasn't lying. Grant recounted fragments of his and DJ's childhood, the overcrowded group homes, their secret pact to always look out for each other, and the final letter DJ left behind before disappearing. Jenna listened in silence, eyes misty. It was like hearing a ghost story brought to life. "I didn't think he had any family left," she murmured. "I thought I didn't either," Grant replied. "I never got married. Didn't feel like I could trust anyone enough to build something real. Until now. Jenna studied him, trying to read past the tailored coat and polished manners. You've done well for yourself. DJ would have been proud. Grant gave a sad smile. I think he'd be more proud if I hadn't waited this long to look for him. Ellie perked up suddenly. Can I go with him? He said he has a big apartment. Jenna turned. Ellie, honey, we don't really know. It's okay, Grant interrupted gently. I'd love to show her around sometime. Maybe this weekend? You're both welcome. Jenna hesitated. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Yet. She's never been around strangers, and I don't want her getting hurt. I'm not a stranger, Grant said. I'm family. I didn't come here looking for anything, but I found a niece I didn't know existed, and a chance to make up for lost time. I don't want to take her away. I want to add to her life. Jenna's walls cracked a little at that. She looked at Ellie again, then at Grant. Okay, she said finally. Saturday, you can take us both out to lunch. Neutral ground. Deal, he said, extending his hand across the table. She shook it firmly. As Grant left the diner that afternoon, a strange feeling settled over him. Hope, something he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't about making amends. He couldn't undo the past. But maybe he could build something new out of it. Back in his penthouse later that evening, he looked around at the cold modern furniture and the floor-to-ceiling windows with million-dollar views. For the first time, it all felt empty. He sat down at the piano in the corner of the room. He hadn't touched it in months. His fingers rested on the keys, unsure at first. Then slowly, he began to play an old melody. One DJ used to hum when they were boys sharing a bunk bed in a too-crowded foster home. He played it through once, then again, adding in new notes, filling in the silence. This time, he wasn't just remembering the past. He was writing a new beginning. Saturday morning dawned clear and cool, with a gentle breeze rolling through the city. Grant stood by the window of his apartment, sipping coffee from a ceramic mug, an old habit he never broke, even with a kitchen full of designer espresso machines. But this morning was different. He wasn't preparing for a board meeting or checking stock tickers. He was waiting for family. At precisely 11 a.m., the building's doorman rang up. Mr. Whitaker, a Miss Bennett and her daughter are here to see you. Grant took a breath. Send them up. A few minutes later, the elevator dinged and the doors opened to reveal Ellie, bouncing excitedly in a red hoodie, and Jenna, dressed simply but neatly, her eyes darting around the polished lobby like she didn't belong. You made it, Grant said, smiling warmly. Ellie ran ahead. Whoa, this place is huge. It smells like a hotel. Jenna gave him a wary glance. She's excited. Let her be, Grant said. I wanted her to see it. Both of you, really. He gave them the tour. Floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the river, a kitchen, Jenna joked, looked too clean to actually cook in, and a sprawling library with a piano in the corner. Ellie flopped on the suede couch. You live here all alone? For now, Grant replied, but it gets quiet sometimes. I like it, Ellie said. It's fancy, but not weird. Jenna laughed softly. That's probably the best compliment you're going to get. They headed out soon after for lunch at a family-friendly bistro down the block. Conversation came easier this time. Jenna relaxed a little. Grant told Ellie stories about her dad. Funny ones, like how DJ once tried to skateboard off a garage roof and broke 2 fingers, and sweet ones, like how he'd save half his sandwich to split with Grant when food ran short. Ellie's eyes widened. He sounds awesome. He was, Grant said, and you have so much of him in you. Jenna's smile faded briefly. It's good she can hear that. I've tried to keep his memory alive, but it's not the same. I want to help, Grant said. Not just once in a while. I mean really help. School, health, whatever she needs. Jenna hesitated. You don't owe us anything. It's not about owing, he said. It's about finally having the chance to do something right. Back at the apartment later, Jenna wandered to the bookshelf while Ellie played with a chess set. She found a frame hidden behind a stack of old biographies, an aged photo of 2 boys, maybe 10 and 12, standing outside a foster home, arms slung around each other. Is that you and him? She asked. Grant nodded. That's the last picture we took together. Jenna looked down at the photo, then at him. Maybe this wasn't an accident, Grant. Maybe we were meant to find you. He looked at her. really looked. And for the first time, it wasn't just about reconnecting with DJ's memory. It was about what came next. The following week brought a shift in all their lives. Grant, once consumed by business calls and investment meetings, found himself blocking out hours just to meet Ellie after school or grab coffee with Jenna. It was strange how quickly his rigid routine adjusted to accommodate this new presence, how natural it began to feel. Tuesday afternoon, Grant picked Ellie up from her school in Midtown. It was her first time seeing him in normal people clothes, jeans, sneakers, a faded flannel, and she grinned like she'd spotted Superman undercover. "Where's the fancy coat?" she teased as she jumped into his car. "Taking the day off," Grant replied. "I figured if we're going to the park, I shouldn't look like I'm going to a stockholders meeting." They headed to Central Park, where Ellie insisted he attempt the monkey bars. He failed spectacularly, and they ended up sharing a pretzel near the pond, tossing crumbs to the ducks. For a man who'd once negotiated a $100 million deal over lunch, Grant realized he hadn't laughed this freely in years. Afterward, they stopped by the diner to check in on Jenna. She had a 10-minute break, and the three of them sat at the counter sipping sodas like old friends. One of Jenna's co-workers leaned in with a sly grin. "You sure this isn't your man, Jenna?" Jenna laughed but didn't answer right away. "He's family," she finally said, her eyes catching Grant's. "In more ways than one." Later that evening, as Grant drove them home, Ellie asked quietly, "Do you ever get lonely?" The question caught him off guard. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Even when you have everything, it can feel like nothing without people to share it with." Ellie nodded like she understood far more than a child should. "Mom gets sad sometimes. I hear her crying at night." Grant's chest tightened. "She's been through a lot." "Yeah," Ellie whispered, "but she's strong, like a superhero without a cape." Back at their apartment, Jenna walked Ellie upstairs while Grant waited in the lobby. When she came back down, he stood to say goodbye, but she surprised him. "Come up, have dinner with us." "You sure?" Jenna nodded. "We're just having mac and cheese and frozen peas, but you're welcome." He smiled. "Sounds perfect." That night, the three of them sat around a wobbly kitchen table with mismatched chairs, eating simple food and telling stories. Grant told them about the time he got stuck in a service elevator for 2 hours on his way to a gala. Ellie nearly spit out her milk laughing. The apartment was small and humble, but it felt warmer than any luxury suite Grant had ever stayed in. As he helped Jenna with the dishes, she glanced sideways. "You're not just doing this because of DJ, are you?" "No," Grant said softly. "I started because of him, but I stayed because of you." She didn't respond, but her expression said everything. For the first time, they weren't just filling gaps from the past. They were building something real for the future. Spring melted into early summer, and with it came changes. Some subtle, some big enough to make the past feel like a distant echo. Grant, once a man whose calendar was filled with boardroom meetings and international flights, now had reminders to attend Ellie's school recital and volunteer at a weekend food drive Jenna helped organize. The shift was more than just in routine, it was in purpose. One Saturday afternoon, Grant took Ellie and Jenna on a surprise trip outside the city. They rode in his SUV for over an hour until they reached the Hudson River Valley, where a quiet stretch of land overlooked the water. Ellie leaned forward in her seat. "What is this place?" Grant grinned. "You'll see." He led them up a gravel path to a 2-story house under renovation. White siding gleamed in the sun, and the smell of fresh paint lingered in the air. Workers bustled around, and scaffolding stood along one side. Jenna looked around, puzzled. "What is this?" "I bought it last month," Grant said. "It's not finished yet, but it will be soon." "For you?" Jenna asked slowly. "For us," he replied. "I figured we might all like a fresh start. Somewhere quieter, somewhere that feels like home." Jenna looked stunned. "Grant, this is huge. I mean, we've only known each other a few months. This isn't about time," he said. "It's about intention. I missed a lifetime with DJ. I'm not going to miss another chance to do right by the people he loved." Ellie ran up the porch steps, peeking into the windows. "Does it have a backyard?" "Big enough for a dog, if someone I know decides she wants one," Grant called out. She beamed. "Best day ever." Jenna walked closer to Grant. Are you sure you're ready for this kind of life? I've had every kind of life except the one that matters, he said. I don't want to just visit your world, Jenna. I want to build something with you. And if you're willing, maybe we can try. She looked at him for a long moment, emotion clouding her eyes. Then she reached out and took his hand. Let's build it slow, but yeah, let's try. They stood there for a while, watching Ellie run through the tall grass, arms outstretched like wings. Later that evening, back in the city, Grant opened a dusty box he'd kept tucked away in a closet for years. Inside were old photos, a few drawings, and a folded letter. The last letter DJ had ever written him. He reread it slowly. I hope someday you find the kind of life we always dreamed about. If I can't be there, at least you'll know I believed in you. Grant smiled. I found it, big brother, he whispered, and I found her too. As twilight settled over the skyline, he knew this wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of one. A story of second chances, healing, and the kind of love that breaks cycles, builds bridges, and turns strangers into family. And for the first time in a very long time, Grant Whitaker felt whole. From a chance encounter on a city sidewalk to the discovery of long-lost family, Grant, Jenna, and Ellie found something far more valuable than money: connection, healing, and a future built on love and trust. What began as a simple act of kindness turned into the restoration of a broken past and the creation of a new beginning. Sometimes the smallest moments lead to the biggest changes. Share this story if you believe in second chances, family, and the power of showing up when it matters most.